250 years ago, 56 men signed a document that was, among other things, one of the most audacious financial bets in human history. They were declaring independence from the largest economy on earth, with no functioning treasury, no established credit, no central bank, no currency anyone trusted, and an army that was, by any honest assessment, dramatically outmatched. What they were betting on, beyond liberty, beyond principle, beyond everything we celebrate, was the productive capacity of free people making free choices about their own land, their own labor, and their own future. 250 years later, that bet has produced the largest wealth-generated economy the world has ever seen. This week, on this 250th anniversary of that declaration, we're going to walk through what actually built that wealth. Not the textbook version, the financial version, the version that has direct lessons for your family, your retirement, and the decisions you are making right now. I'm Jason, and I'm a financial advisor who works with families and people planning for retirement. Every other week on this channel, we use history to illuminate the financial decisions that matter most in the present. Today's video is a little different from our usual format. It's broader, it's more celebratory, and it's built around a question I find genuinely fascinating. Across 250 years of wildly different economic environments, farming economies, industrial economies, financial economies, and digital economies, what are the behaviors and principles that consistently produced wealth for ordinary American families? Because those principles didn't change when the economy changed, they showed up in the 1780s and they show up today. And understanding them is, I'd argue, the most useful financial education you can give yourself. Let's start at the beginning. In 1776, the American economy was overwhelmingly agrarian. Roughly 90% of the population lived and worked on farms. There were no stock markets, no corporate bonds, no retirement accounts, no banks as we understand them today. The financial instruments available to ordinary people were extraordinarily limited, and yet wealth was built, generational wealth in many cases, wealth that funded the education, the ambition, and the opportunity of the generations that followed. But how? The primary wealth building mechanism of colonial and early America was land ownership. Land was productive. It generated food, which sustained the family and produced a surplus that could be sold or traded. It generated timber, which built structures and ships. It generated crops like tobacco in Virginia, cotton further south, grain in the mid-Atlantic that found markets in Europe and beyond. But land did something else that mattered just as much as its immediate productivity. It appreciated. As the population grew, as settlement expanded, as infrastructure developed around it, land became more value simply by existing and being held. The families who built wealth in early America were overwhelmingly the families who owned land rather than rented it, who expanded ownership rather than merely consuming what they produced, who held assets that appreciated rather than only trading their labor for immediate income. This is the first principle, and it is old as the Republic. Principle number 1, own assets, don't just earn income. In 1776, the asset was land. In 1876, it would be industrial equity. In 1976, it would be home ownership and retirement accounts. In 2026, it is a combination of all of the above. But the underlying behavior is identical across every era. The families who built lasting wealth were the ones who converted a portion of their income into ownership of something that produced value beyond their own daily labor. There is a second lesson from the colonial economy that is easy to miss. The early American economy was not a cash economy in any meaningful sense. Barter was common, credit was personal and relationship-based, and the concept of financial safety, of having reserves against bad harvests, bad weather, or unexpected loss was understood at a visceral survival level that most modern Americans have lost touch with. Colonial families who survived and prospered maintained stores, preserved food, kept seed for the following year, rather than consuming everything the current year produced. They did not optimize for maximum present consumption. They optimized for resilience, for the ability to survive a bad year without losing everything that they had built. We'll come back to that principle because it shows up in every era of American wealth building that follows. Between roughly 1820 and 1900, the American economy underwent the most dramatic structural transformation in its history up to that point. The Industrial Revolution arrived, and with it, an entirely new set of wealth-building mechanisms for ordinary Americans. Railroads knit the continent together, opening markets that had been impossible to reach. Steel production scaled to previously unimaginable volumes. Mechanized agriculture multiplied the productive output of a single-family farm. Telegraph networks compressed the time and space of commerce. By the late 19th century, the United States had become the largest industrial economy on Earth, surpassing Great Britain, the nation that had invented the Industrial Revolution, in total manufacturing output. This era created extraordinary wealth, but it distributed that wealth unevenly, and understanding why is directly instructive. The families who built lasting wealth during the industrial era were not primarily the factory workers, though factory wages were real and meaningful. They were the owners, the investors, the people who found ways, however modest, to own a share of the productive capacity that was transforming the economy. This was the era when the modern stock market took shape. The New York Stock Exchange, which had existed in rudimentary form since 1792, became a genuine mechanism for ordinary Americans, not just wealthy merchants and bankers, to participate in corporate ownership. It was also the era when the concept of the entrepreneur as a wealth builder entered the American cultural imagination at scale. The industrial period produced its share of enormous fortunes built from genuinely humble origins. Carnegie, starting out as a bobbin boy in a cotton factory. Rockefeller, keeping meticulous accounts of every penny he earned as a clerk. These stories, while exceptional, contained a pattern that showed up at every level of the economic ladder. The pattern was this: you spend less than you earn. Save the difference. Deploy those savings into something productive, like a business, an investment, or a productive asset. Repeat patiently for a long time. It sounds almost too simple, but watch how it shows up across every subsequent era of American wealth building, and you'll stop finding it simple. You'll start finding it profound. This brings us to the second principle. Principle number 2. The gap between what you earn and what you spend is the raw material of all wealth. No investment strategy, no market timing, no financial product can compensate for consistently spending more than you earn. Conversely, even a modest and consistent savings gap, directed patiently into productive assets, compounds into something significant over time. Carnegie didn't become Carnegie in a single transaction. He became Carnegie through decades of reinvesting returns into larger and larger productive capacity. The mechanism available to him was steel mills. The mechanism available to you is a diversified investment portfolio. The principle is identical. The industrial era also introduced something new to the American wealth-building landscape, something that would become increasingly important in every era that followed: diversification of income. The families who built the most resilient wealth during the industrial period were not purely dependent on a single crop, a single employer, or a single industry. They combined wage income with small business ownership with property with modest investment in the growing equity markets. Multiple streams, multiple assets, multiple sources of productive return. Not because they were financially sophisticated in the modern sense, most weren't, but because experience had taught them that dependence on a single source of income was fragile that bad luck could exploit. By the early 20th century, the financial infrastructure of modern America was taking shape. The Federal Reserve was established in 1913. Income tax arrived the same year with the 16th Amendment. Life insurance became a mass market product, and the concept of personal financial planning, thinking systematically about income, savings, and future security, began entering mainstream American consciousness for the first time. This era introduced something that would become one of the most powerful wealth-building tools in American history, and one that most people dramatically underestimate, and that's compound interest. However, not as a concept, Compound interest had existed as long as money had existed, but is a mass market reality. For the first time, ordinary working Americans had access to savings institutions like banks, savings and loan associations, and credit unions where their savings could earn interest, and that interest could earn interest. And the process can continue over decades. The math of compounding is worth pausing on because it is genuinely counterintuitive until you've sat with it. A dollar saved at age 25, invested at a 7% annual return, becomes approximately $14.97 by age 65. 40 years of compounding turns $1 into nearly 15. A dollar saved at age 45, 20 years later, becomes approximately $3.87 by age 65. Same dollar, same return, 20 years of difference. The 25-year-old's dollar outperforms the 45-year-old's dollar by nearly 4 to 1, not because of better investment choices, but purely because of time. The early 20th century Americans who grasped this, who started early, saved consistently, and who did not interrupt the compounding process, built wealth that outlasted them. The ones who waited, who consumed first and saved what remained, who treated savings as optional rather than as foundational, well, they arrived at old age dependent on family, on charity, or whatever meager government support existed. Which brings us to the third principle. Principle number 3. Time is the most powerful financial asset you will ever have, and it cannot be recovered once spent. Every year you delay building the wealth-generating habit is not a neutral decision. It is a costly one. Not obviously, not immediately, but with mathematical certainty over time. The families who understood this in the early 20th century started early, started small if necessary, but started and did not stop. Now we arrive at what I consider the most important chapter of the history of American wealth building for ordinary families, the period between roughly 1945 and 1975. This era deserves its own video, and we may well make that video. But for today, let me give you the essential story. When World War II ended in 1945, approximately 16 million American servicemen and women returned home. They came back to a country whose industrial capacity had been dramatically expanded by wartime production and whose primary competitors, the economies of Europe and Asia, had been physically devastated. America was, for a brief but consequential window, the only major industrial economy standing, and the domestic demand pent up by years of wartime rationing and sacrifice exploded into one of the greatest economic expansions in history. But what made this era truly extraordinary for ordinary Americans wasn't just the economic growth. It was the specific policies and institutions that ensured that growth reached families who in previous eras would have been largely excluded from wealth building. The GI Bill of 1944, formerly the Servicemen's Readjustment Act, is arguably the single most wealth-creating piece of legislation in American history for middle-class families. It provided returning veterans with low-cost mortgages, college education funding, business loan guarantees, 1 year of unemployment insurance while they transitioned into civilian life. In practical terms, it put home ownership, the most reliable wealth-building mechanism available to ordinary families, within reach of millions of Americans who would never have had access to it otherwise. And home ownership, as we've discussed in other videos on this channel, is not just a place to live. It is a forced saving mechanism, an appreciating asset, and a foundation of financial stability that compounds over decades. The post-war era also saw the maturation of the employer pension system. By the 1950s and 1960s, a significant portion of American workers, particularly unionized workers in manufacturing, utilities, and transportation, were covered by defined benefit pension plans, plans that promised a guaranteed monthly income for life in retirement, regardless of market conditions. Combined with Social Security, which had been established in 1935 and expanded significantly in the post-war decades, this created something that had never before existed for ordinary American workers: a reliable, predictable retirement income floor. The financial lesson of the post-war era is the most optimistic one in American financial history, and it is this: when access to wealth-building tools is broadened, when homeownership, education, and retirement savings and credit are made available to a wider range of ordinary people, the result is not a redistribution of a fixed pool of wealth. It is an expansion of the total pool. The post-war middle class didn't build wealth at anyone else's expense. They built it because productive capacity, directed by motivated workers with genuine skin in the game, generates more than it consumes. The American economy of 1965 was not a zero-sum competition. It was an expanding pie. And the policies that put more families at the table made the pie larger, not smaller. This brings us to the fourth principle, one that is both financial and deeply personal. Principle number 4, access to the right tools at the right time is as important as individual financial behavior. The GI Bill generation didn't build wealth purely because they were more disciplined or more virtuous than previous generations. They built wealth because they had access to tools, affordable mortgages, education funding, retirement pensions, and a growing job market that made wealth building possible at a scale that had never been before. The lesson for families today is to know what tools exist and to use them fully. The 401k with employer match that you're not fully utilizing, the Roth IRA contribution you skipped this year, the HSA balance you're spending down rather than investing, the home equity you're not thinking about strategically. These are the post-war era tools of today. They are not as automatic as a pension. They require individual action and individual discipline, but they exist. They are powerful, and families who use them fully, consistently, and early will look back in 30 years the way the GI Bill generation looked back, with a wealth foundation that changed the trajectory of their family permanently. In 1978, a relatively obscure provision was added to the Internal Revenue Code, Section 401k. It was not initially designed to be a retirement savings vehicle. It was a technical provision related to deferred compensation for executives. But a benefit consultant named Ted Benna recognized something in the language of that provision, a possibility its authors hadn't fully intended. He proposed using it to create a tax-advantaged saving plan that any employee could contribute to. His employer approved it. The IRS signed off, and in 1981, the first 401k plan, as we know it today, went into operation. What followed was a transformation in how ordinary Americans saved for retirement, and arguably the most significant structural change in personal finance since Social Security itself. By 1990, there were approximately 97,000 401k plans covering nearly 19 million American workers. By 2000, over 42 million workers were participating. Today, approximately 60 million Americans have active 401k accounts, holding collectively over $10 trillion in assets. The 401k didn't just create a saving mechanism. It did something more fundamental. It made every participating American worker, for the first time, a direct investor in the American economy, not through a pension managed by someone else, not through a savings account earning fixed interest, but through ownership, actual ownership of diversified equity in American businesses. And here is where the fifth and final principle emerges, the one that ties every era of American wealth building together. Principle number 5, ownership of productive assets held patiently through uncertainty is the engine of long-term wealth in every era of American history. In 1776, the productive asset was farmland. In 1876, it was industrial equity and real property. In 1945, it was a home purchased with a GI Bill mortgage and a pension accruing in the background. In 1981, it became a 401k invested in a diversified portfolio of American businesses. The form changed in every era. The underlying principle never did. The Americans who built lasting wealth in every generation, in every economic environment, were the ones who found a way to own a piece of something productive, who held that ownership patiently through the inevitable periods of uncertainty and volatility, who did not allow short-term fear to sever their long-term participation in the wealth-generating capacity of the American economy. The index fund, invented by John Bogle at Vanguard in 1976, is perhaps the most democratizing financial instrument ever created. It allows any American with any amount of money to own a proportional share of the largest businesses in the country. The colonist who owned a farm in 1780 was participating in the American economy in the most direct way available to him. The retiree who holds a low-cost S&P 500 index fund today is doing the exact same thing, participating in the productive capacity of America at scale across hundreds of businesses. The technology is different. The principle is 250 years old. Let me bring the full arc of this video into something you can actually use. Across 250 years of American wealth building, through farming economies and industrial economies, through wars and recoveries, through technological revolutions and financial crisis, 5 principles showed up consistently in the financial lives of the families who built lasting wealth. Principle 1. Own assets. Don't just earn income. Are you converting a meaningful portion of your income into ownership of your home, of a diversified investment portfolio, of a business, or are you primarily trading your time for money that gets fully consumed? Principle 2. The gap between what you earn and what you spend is the raw material of all wealth, not your income, not your investment returns. The gap. What remains after you've lived your life and met your obligations. That gap, directed consistently and patiently, is what builds financial futures. Principle 3. Time is the most powerful financial asset you will ever have, and it cannot be recovered once spent. If you are in your 40s, you still have time that is worth more than money. If you are in your 50s, you have less of it, which means every year of delay is increasingly costly. There is no version of this story where starting later works better than starting now. Principle 4. Access to the right tools at the right time is as important as individual financial behavior. Your 401k match, your employer offers, the Roth IRA, the HSA, the tax-advantaged accounts that exist specifically to help ordinary Americans build retirement security. These are the GI Bill of your generation. They are not automatic. They require you to show up and to use them. Principle 5. Ownership of productive assets held patiently through uncertainty is the engine of long-term wealth in every era of American history. The American economy has faced wars, depressions, pandemics, political crisis, technological disruptions, and financial panics across 250 years. It has, across every one of those periods, measured in decades rather than months, continued to generate wealth for the people who remain invested in its productive capacity. That is not a guarantee about any specific year or any specific period. It is an observation about the longest financial track record of any economy in the modern world. And that track record began 250 years ago this week, with 56 men signing a document that bet everything on the productive capacity of free people making free choices about their own futures. That bet is still paying off. The question, and the one it's always been, is whether you're positioned to participate in it. During this 250th anniversary of American independence, I want to say something that doesn't always fit neatly into a financial planning video. The ability to build wealth, to own a home, to invest in a retirement account, to start a business, to pass something of value to the next generation is not a given in human history. For most of human history, for most people in most places, it was not available. Wealth was inherited, or it didn't exist. The idea that an ordinary working family could, through consistent financial behavior over a working lifetime, build genuine financial security, that is a relatively recent and genuinely remarkable development. America didn't invent that idea, but America scaled it in a way no other nation has matched. And the financial history of the last 250 years is at its core the story of scaling and is still very much in progress. The principles we walk through today are not complicated. They are not secret. They have been available in different forms in different areas to American families for 2.5 centuries. The families who used them built something that lasted beyond them, something that gave the next generation a longer runway and a stronger foundation. That is what financial planning is really about. Not the accounts, not the tax strategies, not the investment returns, the legacy, the foundation. The declaration, not made in Philadelphia in 1776, but in a household budget and a retirement account and a family conversation about the future that the next generation deserves better than what we started with. If this video resonated with you, if it changed how you think about the financial decisions in front of you right now, subscribe to this channel. Every other week, we bring this kind of perspective to the topics that matter most for families and people approaching retirement. And if you're ready to make sure the principles we discussed today are actually reflected in your financial plan, reach out. That conversation is what we do. Happy 250th America, and I'll see you in the next video.